Coming up next on This Week in Radio Tech, Mike Spry is our guest. I've known Mike for years as full-time as the Director of Engineering for some Orlando radio stations. Well, now he's leading a whole team of engineers taking care of engineering tickets, trouble, and fixing them all across the country. Hundreds of radio stations. It's a pretty interesting prospect. It's coming up next. Mike Spry and Chris Tarr are next on TWiRT.
This Week in Radio Tech is brought to you by Broadcasters General Store with outstanding service, savings, and support. Online at bgs.cc. By Broadcast Bionics with the Bionics Studio, including talk show control, social media, and visual radio. Broadcast Bionics brings exceptional audience engagement to radio and TV. By Angry Audio. Audio problems disappear when you get angry at angryaudio.com. By Nautel, worry-free transmission you can count on with outstanding control, reliability, efficiencies, and Nautel's unmatched 24/7 customer support. Online at nautel.com. And by Max Connect Wireless, prioritized high-speed internet service designed for transmitter sites and remote broadcasts.
Hey, welcome into This Week in Radio Tech, the show where we talk about everything from the microphone to that light bulb at the top of the tower, and often about fixing these things and taking care of them. That's what we do as engineers, and we talk about radio technology. Hi, I'm Kirk Harnack in Nashville, Tennessee, covered up by lots of snow. We got about 7 or 8, maybe 9 inches of snow here in Nashville, and now we have freezing rain coming down. Just when they're clearing the roads, now comes the freezing rain and more cold temperatures. So, we don't really know how that works here in Nashville. I gave myself a backache last night just scraping enough snow off the deck and the stairs to the deck to get myself out there to do a loving thing, feed the birds. I got 2 bird feeders out there, and all the cardinals and finches and I don't know what else is out there. Some woodpeckers, they come out and they steal all the seeds that they can. So I try to keep them happy and alive. No sense putting water out there, though, for them. They got plenty of snow, and the water just freezes. So I hope I'm doing my part. Also, the Amazon van got stuck in my driveway today. I had to get a tow truck to pull the Amazon van out of my driveway. So that was exciting for both me and I guess more for the driver. So how about that? Hey, we're here on this Thursday live, and with us is Chris Tarr in Mukwonago. And I can't brag about snow because Chris is in Mukwonago, where there's plenty of it.
Oh, I know. We have got, I'm looking out my window here. In fact, let me see if I can quick go mobile here with this. Yeah, you really can't see, but there's got to be 1.5 foot on the back porch.
What? Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, it's nuts. And then we've had winds, so we've had some kind of blizzard conditions. And then the worst part is, and we are prepared here obviously in the north for snow, and honestly it doesn't slow us down much, but there gets to a point where it gets so cold, and it's been below zero now for several days, where because there was so much snow, the roads couldn't get completely cleared. And salt doesn't work. So you get to a point where now there's just flattened chunks of ice in the road that isn't going to go away until it gets a little bit warmer. We can respray it with brine. But it's been, fortunately, the one thing I did do that was really smart, and I suggest this a lot of people my age as, living up in this area, is I have somebody who shovels. Because, especially this last time was that kind of wet, heavy snow. And, we lost a good friend of ours, Chris, cleaning snow up. Mm-hmm. And, it's very common for heart attacks, especially, as you get older, trying to shovel the snow. So I don't do that anymore. But it's pretty for the first couple of days. Then we're at the point now where it's just really annoying.
I know showing a screen on a screen usually doesn't work too well, and equally here, but that's a live look at my front yard. And it is a hill. It's not a mound of snow that big. There is actually a hill there. But if the picture looks blown out, no, it's not blown out. That's the snow. Yeah. And I know we're sitting here bragging about snow. What's that, Chris?
Let me just show you that picture. That's my back porch.
Oh, wow. And it's not unlike mine, dude. Hang on.
No, and that was actually, we've had more snow since that. Yeah.
That's what I shoveled last night. And some rain has come along. Yeah, it's just right at freezing, so some of it thawed. But it's going to refreeze all again tonight in the next few days. We're calling off the family reunion, I fear, because people won't be able to make it here. So we should have the family reunion in Orlando. That would be the place to do it. What do you think?
That's thinking.
Let's check with our Orlando tour guide who has joined us today. And that's Mike Sprysenski. Hey, Mike Sprysenski, good to see you. How are you?
How you doing, Kurt?
I'm good. I'm good. Delightful to have you. And we're so envious because I know it's a balmy 71 at your place, right?
Yep, 71 and raining.
Rain. Well, yeah. Well, you take some, you leave some. But wow. So if we had our family reunion in Orlando, would the Harnack family be in a happier shape right now?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Mike? Are you actually in the Orlando area? Is that where you live?
I live a little bit north of Orlando. The iHeart studios are in Maitland, Florida, which is a little north of Orlando.
Oh, okay. Seems like on I-4, I recall driving by a big TV station there on the side of the road. Is that Maitland? Or is that...
Yeah, that's the Maitland area. That's Channel 2. They have their studios and helicopter pad right off I-4.
Yeah, that's what I've seen. I think we had an SBE meeting there one time, or very close to that.
Yep.
Yeah, sure probably so. Well, let me introduce Chris. This is Mike Sprysenski, or Mike. Can we call you Mike Sprysenski? What do you like to go by?
Mike Spry's fine.
Okay, awesome, good. I like that. That's how I met you years ago. Mike, you are the team lead, the support team lead for iHeart, and we're going to find out some interesting things, at least the things that you can tell us about what you do there. Kind of give us a little preview. What does your job entail? Because you're no longer the Southeast area director of engineering. You're kind of in charge of a team for the whole country. What's a little thumbnail on what your job entails?
Back in 2020, iHeart decided to put together a central support team for broadcasts, similar that most companies, large companies, have for IT. And so we put together a team of about 5 or 6 engineers from within the company, and we started the process of building all of our infrastructure with tools and sensors, and if it can be monitored, we probably monitor it. Everything from studios to electrical to HVAC to generators, anything that has an IP address and can have a sensor on it that we can monitor, mostly through SNMP. We will monitor that, and depending on what happens, then through various monitoring platforms, that will be fed into our ticket system. And then my team, which now operates 24/7, 365, we have 18 engineers on the team. They will take that ticket and either resolve the problem remotely, if it's possible to do that. And if not, we will get it to either a centralized team or the local regional engineers in the market to solve.
Wow. Okay. And there's a lot that goes into that. And I love the process that you guys have in place. It sounds like it's actually working very, very well. That's what we're going to get into. Some of the things that Mike has found that work well, maybe a couple things that haven't worked as well. And it's interesting when you take care of that many radio stations, and Chris takes care of a lot, close to 50 transmitters, and I take care of a few, but Mike Spry is in charge of teams that take care of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of transmitter sites and studios. So we're going to be finding out about how that works and what works well about it. Hey, our show, real quick announcement, our show is brought to you in part by Nautel. And Nautel is a great friend of the broadcast industry. And I want to remind you, hey, while some of us are stuck at home in our homes because it's nasty outside, that now's a great time to go back and review some of the things that are on the Nautel site. And I don't mean necessarily transmitters, although you're welcome to, but some of the great educational programs that they have on the Nautel website. So go to nautel.com, and there's a whole place where you can look certainly at the archived programs of their Transmission Talk Tuesday roundtable discussions, and you do get SBE credit for watching those. So you can, and you can report that even if it's one that you're watching an archive. You can report that if you be honest, take the whole thing, watch it over, learn from it, and you get half a credit for your SBE recertification. There's all kinds of great topics there for Transmission Talk Tuesday, but there's other resources at the Nautel.com website, educational resources. There are white papers. There are webinars on specific issues and questions and techniques and technologies that we use. Like if you need to know more about HD, maybe you need to brush up on something about HD radio, or you're getting ready to, like I did last summer, install some HD radio. There's some great resources right there. The Transmission Talk Tuesdays cover so many things, but remember, there are things in addition to the Transmission Talk Tuesdays. Although, man, those are just terrific resources. Check it out from Nautel.com. Of course, while you're there, if you want to check out the new Nautel GV2 transmitter series, you get everything in one box. You plug audio into it. It can be live wire. It can be AES EBU audio. You plug it in there. You got processing inside of it. You can get Orban. You can get Omnia 9 processing, and you've got all the HD stuff in there. And there's no need for anything to keep the HD one and the FM aligned. It's all built into that transmitter. It's very stable. Check it out from Nautel at Nautel.com. Thanks a lot, Nautel, for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. And thank you for being a friend of the industry and a friend of broadcast engineers like me and Chris and our guest, Mike Spry. Really appreciate what you do for us. All right, we are here with Chris Tarr and Mike Spry. And Chris, I know you're going to have questions too, because I don't know, Chris, do you have a ticketing system, or you just keep all this stuff in your head when something goes wrong? How does that work for
We did. Now, when I was at Intercom, before they merged and we went to an official system, we each had our own, and I did have a ticketing system there. Here we tried it, and it just turns out that it's just easier. We don't have many people, with COVID and everything, working in buildings anymore, so it's just easier for them to email me now.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Mike, I wonder if you could, when it seems like some years ago, when iHeart announced that they would be centralizing a lot more of the engineering operations, and they would have some Tiger teams of people that go out and build studios and do big refurbs when that was necessary. And I know that plenty of engineers in the industry kind of groused about, they're going to get rid of local engineers, and what would you do without us? And as an engineer myself for literally 14 radio stations, and we do have a guy helping us who does most of the transmission work, I can tell you that with today's technology, this is very doable. And I'm just one little guy that's, only medium smart. You guys have come up with plenty of processes, a lot of standardization across your place. I wonder if you could kind of take us through the story of, how you decided to go about this path to make this a reality where you may even do a better job now than you did with, several engineers in each market. Kind of give me your thoughts on, curious through that.
Well, up until 2018, 2019, the company had some standards in place, but when we were doing rebuilds, the local engineering manager could pretty much pick what they want. But that's not going to work for a central support team, because you just can't have 50 different consoles and codecs and all different equipment if you're going to have a central team and create standards. So they made the decision that they would, moving forward as they renovate markets, when real estate leases expire, to start standardizing on what is installed. A two-person studio in Portland, Maine, or Sacramento, California, is going to be the same exact configuration as a studio here in Miami or Tampa. And that really is the key to have central support, efficient central support, because you're not having to worry about supporting 100 different platforms. Standard studio equipment, standard transmitters, standard transmitter processors, codecs, everything from microphone to to the transmitter site, and then document that standardization so that if we get a ticket, we don't have to spend a lot of time trying to figure out how it's hooked up. We know how it's hooked up because it's set to a standard, and that's been working pretty well. There's always growing pains when you're installing new standards and new equipment, but in the last couple of years we've overcome a lot of those hurdles, and it's starting to work very efficiently now. For example, in 2023, we had just north of 50,000 tickets come into the center, and we were able to resolve 61% of those tickets centrally. So
Wow.
the big problem, really, in my opinion, is that we can't find good engineers anymore. We can't find engineers anymore. Engineers are starting to either retire or some have moved on to other fields for whatever reason. But we do have difficulty finding the right engineer to fulfill roles, either from a central support standpoint or in the market.
Do you guys ever use out in the markets? Do you ever use contract engineers? And if so, could a contract engineer benefit by learning some of the standardizations that iHeart has decided, hey, these work well for us. We've argued about them, we've decided on these things, and these are the stuff that everybody finally agrees on. Could a contractor learn from that and maybe then take that and apply it to other stations that he takes care of?
No, absolutely. We do have contract engineers because, again, in some areas of the country, we're having trouble finding full-time engineers. So we have to have somebody there. So we will hire a contract engineer, and in some cases, we'll turn a contract engineer into a full-time engineer if things work out. So yeah, I think definitely, anybody that was looking at trying to make their operation more efficient, standardization, especially for a central support team, is key.
I want to ask Chris Tarr this question first, and then I want to see it answered on a much larger scale from Mike Spry. And the question is this: what can you do with a centralized engineering effort or scenario or architecture? What can you do better with centralized engineering than you could do having several engineers out in the field? Because I'm sure that, Chris, I'm sure the stations that you're working with at Magnum Media, at some point there were a number of engineers at these individual stations before they got bought up and brought into the Magnum Media group. What do you feel you do better as a centralized operation than when they were unconnected and spread out?
That's a great question, because even when I first took over, that was one of the things I had to do, because they still weren't, excuse me, they weren't really centralized. And, the problem was we had differing standards. We had differing, pretty much differing everything, equipment that wouldn't talk to other equipment, independent networks. There was really no central repository for where equipment was or what we had. Something would go off the air, either nobody would respond or everybody would respond. And, there was just no general, grasp on the health and status of each market. So by combining them, I now have the ability through my computer to see the transmitter readings in every market, to physically see the transmitters. And then, I have our coworkers assigned to specific groups so that, they're not, first of all, they're, working in an area that they're close to, but also that, we don't have 2 or 3 people responding to something when really only one will do. And we've been able to also then take our best practices and apply them everywhere too. We had, for example, I have, one of my engineers, John, who's really good at, keeping things clean and organized and things like that. So I took a lot of what he did and, involved that and applied that to markets where, he's not involved, into other markets. And so I think in a lot of ways it's helped in consistency. It's helped in the overall operation in terms of, being on the air a whole lot, or being off the air a whole lot less now, because there's one person tracking all of the trends rather than a few people who may not tell the other people that these things are going on. So, all of that together, it's just a lot more consistency in how the operation runs. And because of that, we've achieved a lot of efficiency. Now, having said that, there are some downsides. Obviously, for me, I've got, I don't always have 100% optics on every site that I manage. I have to do a lot of traveling still because there's nothing replaces having somebody there. Or in the case where, one of our guys is on vacation or out or something, and I've got to work something out. So that, there are some issues there, but I think all in all, we're able to take the special abilities that each person has and apply them everywhere. And I think that's great because it's, again, like my coworker, John, who's just one of the best transmitter guys I know I can call him to go to a different area where we might have a tube transmitter or something that he'd be really good at, and he can take care of that. Meanwhile, I do a lot more with HD and SNMP and things like that. So I'll go and take care of those things. So it allows us to build some specialists as well that, maybe when we first took over the station, that guy was just handling that station, but he's got some really good chops in something else. Well, I can use that. I mean, there are places where we can use that skill. So I guess in a nutshell, that is really, those are some of the huge benefits of doing this is that, it scales well. You've got a lot of group knowledge for different things, and you've got consistency.
Interesting. I like all that. That sounds good. Mike, how would you agree or add to what Chris said?
Oh yeah, definitely the standardization across all platforms, all stations, makes things more efficient. We can get the station on, restore service. I mean, that's the goal of our group, is to restore service as fast as possible. And being that we're 24/7 and can get the alerts and tickets quicker than, say, somebody that's in the market and them getting contacted directly. We've got people already awake, and now we don't, as a safety rule, we don't turn transmitters back on without making a call, because we want to make sure that nobody's out there working on the transmitter. We have a process in place where regional engineers will let us know that they're going to be doing maintenance, and it may affect a station being on the air or the power level, and then we'll create a ticket for that, and then we'll when they actually do the work, we'll get additional alerts and tickets for that, and we see immediately, oh, somebody, we know that there's maintenance going on out there. We just need to attach these new tickets to the maintenance ticket, and then we move on. But if we don't have a maintenance ticket for a station and we get an alert for a transmitter being down, we don't want to risk anybody's safety by just turning it back on, assuming that there's nobody out there. We are in the process now of installing cameras at all the sites. We have cameras at some sites, but we don't have them at all sites. So we're in the process of fixing that so that we have eyes on every transmitter site, and we can actually go in and look to see, if somebody's out there. But just as a safety protocol, we're not going to turn somebody's transmitter back on unless we know it's safe to do so. But we can do it quicker than they can, because we're already dialed in, we're already looking at it, and we'll call a local engineer and say, is there somebody working at that site? Your transmitter's off. They'll say no. Bang, we turn it back on. It saves them from having to get up, open the laptop. If it's not on, turn it on. I mean, our goal is to restore service to the station as quickly as possible.
That sounds
good.
Too,
the other nice thing is it helps with vacations. That was kind of the big thing, is, it used to be where, before we started doing that, even at Intercom when I was there in Milwaukee, I was on my own. If I took a vacation, the calls came to me and I had to deal with them, vacation or not. And, now the NOC was able to handle that and take care of those things. And that's kind of the way it works now too, is, because everything now with thanks to SNMP and everything else is all pretty centralized. I've got two other people who can log in and manage all the stuff I have. So they can take that over and get the calls and the emails when I'm on vacation. So I don't have to, I don't have to do anything, answer the phone or anything else. Everybody else has got it. So yeah, I think that's also helped. And I think that also took away some of the reservation or hesitation that some of the engineers had about this centralization. Was, they're looking at it as, well, these guys are going to be watching me, blah, blah, blah. But then all of a sudden they realize, hey, I can go out for a night and, if the transmitter pops off or something, I'm not going to have to worry about it. Somebody else is keeping an eye on that. I think that's been a big thing.
Good points. Good points. Hey, we are talking to Chris Tarr and Mike Spry. Mike Sprysenski from iHeart. He is the team lead for the engineering team that handles trouble tickets and repairs and making things right all over the country. I'm Kirk Harnack. This is This Week in Radio Tech. It's our 679th episode. We're going to have more in just a few minutes. We want to talk about standardization. Mike mentioned standardizing on certain pieces of equipment. You don't do that overnight. It takes time. But I'm interested to see, how well that works. I would think it worked very well. You got the same transmitter, same audio console, same audio processors in every market where applicable, and you can start to see trends and know what's wrong with them and know what's right with them, know how to adjust them. That's coming up. Our show This Week in Radio Tech is brought to you in part by Broadcast Bionics and their fantastic Camera One system. We'll be right back.
Camera One from Broadcast Bionics, designed to bring video to your audio content. Visualizing radio and podcasts for social media. Camera One can automatically create, capture and brand professionally switched video for live streaming or upload, making your production shareable. Control and configure using a web browser on any device. Camera One is available as a 4-camera or 8-camera system using the Blackmagic A10 Mini range, including the A10 Mini Extreme. You can use cameras to suit your studio and your budget. You'll need one camera for a studio wide shot and usually one camera per microphone. A standard multi-channel sound card or IP driver monitors audio from each studio microphone, and we work natively with Axia systems. Ideally, this will be a post-fader feed from each mic, although you can use pre-fade audio or a mic split if that's all you have available. These audio levels are used to intelligently switch the video feed when each contributor is talking. You can also group microphones together into one shot and use the audio from a mixer's aux bus. You can use Camera One's auto switch feature, or disable it and switch using the on-screen buttons or the buttons on the A10. Recordings can automatically start when you tell the system you're on the air. This on-air indication can be linked to your studio's red lights via IP or an Avantec Adam GPIO interface. You can quickly browse all the videos that have been automatically created during your broadcast, download them and post. Camera One is a user-installable system. You'll need a good spec Windows 10 PC, i7 with plenty of storage and 16 gig of RAM. It's better if this machine isn't used for anything else. Remember, you can control the software in a web browser on another device on your network. Camera One, a thrifty way of creating scroll-stopping video from your show or podcast from Broadcast Bionics.
Love Camera One and Broadcast Bionics. They are in England, and they get to test out their ideas on some of the biggest broadcasters in the world in England, like BBC and Capital FM and other broadcasters. It's just amazing. And broadcasters around the world, of course. So check them out at bionic.co.uk or bionics.co.uk or bionic.radio. You can see them in the show notes, too. Thanks a lot, Broadcast Bionics, for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. It's Kirk Harnack along with Chris Tarr and our guest Mike Spry with iHeartMedia's engineering team. And we're talking about centralized engineering operations. And iHeart has gone to a lot of this to handle, day in, day out things. And so Mike's in charge of this. Mike, I'd love to hear from you and also some comments from Chris about maybe a few specific things. And it's okay to mention brand names if you need to, or technologies. But I'd like to understand, what are some of the technologies technologies and brand names that you're finding work well in this environment where you're centralized and you're dealing with things out there? Mike, I know you mentioned SNMP. Many, not all, but many manufacturers offer SNMP access into their equipment. Maybe there's that and some other things that you could tell us about. What works well for you is what I'm looking at.
Well, we started, obviously standardizing on equipment. So, we've got the new studios that they're rebuilding are outfitted with Wheatstone equipment. And the idea between when they renovate the studios, the idea, if you think back before standardization was a thing, every station pretty much had their own air studio or their own master control and talk studio, or a production room for each station. I mean, it ended up being a lot of studios. Well, by standardizing on a single platform manufacturer, you have the ability to really, with the consoles these days is to, with a flick of a button, you can make that studio whatever you want. So the idea is, when we're rebuilding markets, you don't you look at what your needs are, what's the programming requirements for the stations, what shows are live, what shows are voice tracked, and you figure out, I don't need, if I have 10 stations, I don't need 30 studios. You look at how everybody operates, and you may only need 5 or 6 studios, because the stations these days are not live 24/7. At least not a great deal of them. The talk stations may be live from morning drive to afternoon drive, but in a lot of cases, studios end up being empty most of the day. So how can you be more efficient with their studio space? And studio space is a real estate cost. How can you be more efficient and maybe use one studio for 3 stations or 4 stations, depending on the time of day that they need it? In our new facilities, you can walk in and you can hit a button, and that studio will become any station in the market. So if they have a studio and something fails, all they got to do is walk into the next studio, hit a button, and bang, it's that station's studio with everything on the console that they need, all the branding in the studio, the phone system, that all becomes that studio. With a push of a button, becomes that station's studio. And so you don't need as many studios. I mean, COVID changed everything. COVID showed that a large market, you might not need 65,000 square feet. You really might only need 15,000 square feet, because nowadays a lot of people are working from home. Most of our production people are working from home. The traffic department, the sales department. You don't. Every full-time employee doesn't need a desk anymore. All they need is the space to work when they come into the office. So you can save a ton of money on real estate costs by just having shared spaces and shared studios and shared workstations. And that's going to be a huge savings for any company that goes in that direction.
Chris, Tarr, that sounds an awful lot like what you've told me about Magnum Media and how you guys are operating. Is that pretty similar?
Yeah, very much. In fact, we've moved to 2 different facilities so far, and may do some more as we downsize, because he's exactly right with that, in that we don't need one studio per station because they're not being used all day. So, we can rotate them in and out. And I have the same situation, like at our La Crosse facility, where I have one fully built out studio for 4 stations. Now we have other studios that are smaller, but we have one really nice kind of showcase studio that can take on the personality of any of the stations, depending on what button you push. And I'm working on the same thing in our Fort Atkinson facility as well, where we'll just have one nice studio and that'll be it, because with COVID did change everything, and we went from, not only did COVID change everything, but even just the way the business is now is a little bit different. For example, the Fort Atkinson stations that we bought were run from a company from out of the state, and so they had to have a full staff, and and very much redundant to what we have, and they had it all in the building. So you have this building that was just filled with people. Well, some of the people we kept, and then we have our own people, and we all work out of our houses because it just, especially after COVID, we realized that it just didn't make a lot of sense to be paying for all of that real estate when everybody's happier working at home. We're just as efficient. And actually, in some ways, things are actually working out better this way. So we've decided that's how we're going to do it. And so, we've ended up with some of that where we're going, okay, we need to reassess what we're doing. As for technologies, SNMP has really played a big part in all of this, as has, believe it or not, the Rural Broadband Fund, because we've been able to do a lot, put in fiber at pretty much everywhere. And we have some pretty rural sites, and all of my sites now have broadband connectivity. So, we're able to do things like consolidate some of our stations out of one location and really build that up because, being a small group, we can't afford to put in multiple network runs and high capacity generators and UPSs in every building that we have. So we picked out 2 buildings, and that's where we're investing our money, and we're going to run all of our playout systems from those 2 places. And then, the local places then have the live studios where they can take that programming and kind of insert themselves into it. But, the ability to combine all of that stuff with multiple backbones and things like that, it sounds like a big project, but in reality, it saved us a lot of money and has helped us a lot in terms of quality and overall savings and just for the management point of view, to be able to have all those things in 2 locations. And then again, with the SNMP connectivity, to be able to monitor all of that stuff centrally, it's just amazing. I mean, we've had, knock on wood, this winter now that we've implemented some of these things, we've really had no issues at all. The power went out the other day, but a whole handful of our stations are in the data center that I have the great generator with the city gas on it and everything. And we stayed on the air without a heartbeat. Now that would have been a situation a year ago where I know for sure that at least one of those studios would have gone out, where they used to be, and that station would have been off. That didn't happen this time because, we have 2 network connections, we have generators, we have UPSs. So all of those stations stayed on. So there's, again, those are ways that technology and even, the change in how we work has really made a difference, because by having that building empty in Fort Atkinson, that left room to be able to add this technology and do these upgrades for that.
That's great. I want to ask Mike about the concept. I know the way iHeart works these days. You're very dependent in many ways upon internet connections, and but not completely. I think you've got some sites that can operate autonomously, at least for a while. And I got some experience with this myself, kind of eating my own dog food that I've been talking about for some years, in putting everything at a transmitter site, the playout system. Now we still do live programming. I'm speaking of one station that we just built this past summer in Oxford, Mississippi, near Ole Miss University. We have a live local morning show, and we have voice trackers throughout the day after that, and we can go live anytime, literally from anywhere. I could take over and go live from right here at my desk. Not that I have. But anyway, putting everything at the transmitter site where it's well protected, backup power, and at the moment, one source of internet, but maybe later two. I wonder if a company like iHeart is thinking that this may be a way to go, where everything can be packaged and you're dependent on not so much 24/7 service from other providers like internet providers. What do you think?
Well, yeah, we definitely are moving towards that model. As we're in the process of moving our playout systems to a cloud-based system,
Oh yeah.
which will eliminate the studio as a single point of failure. That's always been an issue. I think Chris mentioned it. If you have a studio go down, or a entire, your building loses power and your generator doesn't start, you're off the air pretty much, unless you plan for that in advance. But moving to cloud-based systems eliminates the studio as a single point of failure. And if we lose a studio, or office studio, because of whatever happens, we can continue to keep that station on the air. Depending on the programming, music stations is easy. You put playout systems out at the transmitter site, and if you have a live show or a syndicated show, that will come in via some type of internet connection, whether it be fiber or cable or Starlink or whatever. As we rebuild markets, we're not putting in STL dishes anymore. That's a very expensive thing to do these days. And as long as you have reliable connections to your transmitter site, and backups for you have a main and you have a backup system, and plan accordingly and set them all up so failover happens and stuff like that. And we get alerted whenever we have an indication of a problem at a transmitter site. You can keep stations on the air, and even if you lose that network connectivity, with playout systems, the audio server basically at the transmitter site, the station can stay on the air. Because if the station's off the air, if you're not getting PPM ratings or whatever, how the station's rated, you're losing money. So the idea
I do the same thing, right? As I say, I do the same thing where, all the sites that I have connectivity to, I also have a standby playout server there that's synchronized, and that way, if the fiber does go down, the transmitter site takes over. I still am not totally on board with running everything from the transmitter site yet. I may get there, but I'm not quite there yet.
I hear you. And it's kind of nice to walk into the studio building and have that hum. Of course, that's how we all started in broadcasting, right? That the studio was the center of everything. But we also started in broadcasting where the audio console was the center of everything, and everything went through it all the time, 24/7. And now in a networked environment, the console is just an appliance on the network, and you may be using it and you may not. So all of my stations, they tend to click a button at the end of their shift, put the automation directly to the transmitter. And so the console is free to do other things. We've actually done that for years. There's been a few mistakes along the way, but I didn't know it was on the air. Hey, it's Kirk Harnack, and This Week in Radio Tech, we're talking to Chris Tarr and to Mike Spry, and it's a really interesting conversation. I am really loving this. We've got more to come. I'm also interested in hearing from Mike as to what he thinks that doing this kind of centralized engineering operation, whether it's had a positive, a negative, or no effect on the ability of program directors to maintain localism wherever they possibly can. And some people complain that radio is very homogenized and some stations are not reactive to bad weather situations, things like that. Yet I have heard, the exact opposite as well, where now people are more freed up to do weather interruptions and to do updates and if there's a gas leak somewhere, to get that on the air. So I'm sure there's differing opinions on that, differing experiences with that, but I'd like to hear how Mike's operation in keeping engineering going can help people to maintain local programming whenever and wherever it's needed. This week in Radio Tech, our show is brought to you in part by Broadcasters General Store and their terrific manufacturer, Innovonics. And Innovonics has got something new that they'd like me to tell you about. It is this Innovonics triple tuner. This is a half rack device, like so many Innovonics products are, and it has 3 tuners in it that it's meant for use with your EAS system. And anything from Innovonics is going to be super high quality. It's an EAS monitor receiver in a compact half rack package. It has 3 built-in discrete frequency agile receivers, each one programmable, each one for AM, FM, or NOAA weather reception. And each receiver has balanced mono XLR audio outputs. How about that? That's nice. It's nice to have all these features. It's got an easy front panel setup with a jog wheel and LED readout and metering. Alerts are sent. It's also internet connected, so it can send alerts to your email or text messages. Full function web interface, which Innovonics they are brilliant with this technology of getting a web interface that works really well. And you can remote listen to each tuner individually. And that's really cool. I mean, how many times has that been a problem, not knowing whether your remote tuner is receiving a good signal? So all these just terrific things. By the way, it's got logging internally, 6 hours of real-time history for the signal strength received and audio levels for each tuner. So you can check and see, is this thing receiving reliably? It's, again, that built-in web server. It does have SNMP support for monitoring and control, so it fit right in with Chris Tarr, Mike Spry. And as soon as I figure out SNMP, me too. I need to get a personal lesson from Chris Tarr. And it's got plenty of configurable GPOs as well if you need to interface it to external devices and external remote controls. The 677 model triple tuner from Innovonics. Man, these guys are brilliant when it comes out to introducing this kind of stuff. And if you want to buy one or 2 or more, or one for each of your 50 transmitter sites, like Chris Tarr, check them out from Broadcasters General Store. Their website is bgs.cc. And their phone number, they answer the phone really well. They do good phone. It's 352-622-7700. That number needs to be in your contacts list on your phone, 352-622-7700 for Broadcasters General Store. Thanks so much, BGS and Innovonics, for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. Hey, I'm Kirk Harnack. Chris Tarr is along, and Mike Spry from Orlando, Florida, where it's a lot warmer than Nashville or Mukwonago right now, and we kind of wish we were there. I'm noticing it's going to rain more tonight, and then tomorrow's not going to be too bad, but then it's going to get cold again here in Nashville, down to like 2 degrees on Saturday night, Sunday night. Oh my gosh. Wow. Hey, so I wanted to ask next, Mike, how do you feel that centralized engineering either helps or hinders or doesn't really matter for the programming effort? How do you, what's this interaction like, and how do you feel you aid what actually gets on the air?
Well, I mean, standardization and central support can definitely benefit programming because we can help if for some reason something happens to a program stream for whatever they're carrying, whether it's from the studio or from a network. We have the ability to change that programming or feed something else to that transmitter site with a click of a button to keep that station on the air. There's many cases when we have weather events, especially in Florida, where if it's coming towards Tampa, they can't stay there. They have to relocate somewhere, and we can continue to put the programming on that they want because of the systems, centralized systems, and standardization of equipment. We can quickly get in and change a stream from one place to another, and the local programming is really still important to stations to draw the audience that they need. You're fighting the slice of the pie for listeners is changed dramatically over the last 10, 12, 15 years. And so that's why local programming is still very important and key for a radio station success. So our job is to make sure that whatever the programming department wants, either nationally or locally, that we can make sure that what audio they need gets where it needs to get.
Well, that ability to go on the air from basically anywhere, that's a real boon. That let's say people had to evacuate a Tampa studio because of an impending hurricane. I guess you can still get programming on those same transmitters in Tampa from other locations and people who are in somewhat safer locations, right?
Correct. Yes, we can, as long as we have the right equipment at the transmitter site. And we have been moving towards putting everything at the transmitter site. That includes EAS, that includes PPM, includes voltaires if we have voltaires, and audio servers. And so as long as the transmitter stays up and we have power either through the utility or from generator, that station can stay on the air. And it's proven time and time again how important radio is during a big crisis or especially weather events. We're used to the hurricanes here, and in the central part of the states, you got tornadoes, and West Coast, you've got earthquakes and things like that. But we had one back in 2004. We had 3 hurricanes roll through here in 6 weeks, and it did a significant amount of damage. And in fact, it blew out one of our antennas, and so it's important that you have the systems in place. And we're moving more and more of the stations to cloud-based systems, cloud playout systems, and phone systems, VX. The company's standardized on VXS, TELUS VXS systems for our phones for all of our new studio builds. So that gives us central control of and support for systems that the local engineers may not have the time to work on. I mean, that's the problem. We don't have 5, 6, 7 radio engineers in a market working for a group of stations anymore. It's most likely 1 or 2. And there are markets that don't have engineers, so it's especially important for central support to be able to keep that those stations where there's not an engineer nearby on as much as possible. Can we do it 100% of the time? No. You have a power outage, or you have a UPS fail, you have a switch fail. Somebody's got to go put hands on it. But overall, the amount of downtime is going to be less if it's something that we can centrally support.
Mike, you've got a lot of experience with a lot of different pieces of equipment and maybe similar pieces of equipment across the country. You just mentioned something that made me curious. Is there a type of equipment that you feel like, the industry could really use a better blank? And you mentioned UPS. And I must say that my little radio stations typically have bought less expensive UPSs and rack mounted them, and sometimes we've had very disappointing results. Maybe we expect too much. I don't know. We bought several UPSs that we thought we were paying enough money. We thought they were going to be good. And it turns out that if the batteries deplete and the power's still off, when the power comes back on, they don't come back on. And you can't make them come back on. You have to go push the button. And that really honks me off. Are there opportunities for manufacturers in any way, anything that you deal with, to make a better product?
Yeah, there is, but there's always a cost to that. And, if you're gonna make it, bigger and better, more robust, it usually means it's going to cost more. So the station has to decide whether there's a return on investment on buying a more expensive UPS. The things that are critical to radio stations are obviously power. So if you want that station to stay on 24/7, then you're going to have to invest in a generator. If you want um, uh, if you have internet connections and that internet connection is important to you, you're going to have a backup system. So that's going to cost you more money. UPSs, yeah, I've bought some really bad UPSs and I've bought some really good UPSs. So, but usually the better UPSs, cost 2, 3, or 4 times more than what you buy at a local battery store or something like that.
Yeah.
You want to buy, for me, UPS is what's important is can you service that UPS, change the batteries out while it's still on. Can you bypass the battery part and pull those batteries and replace them out without having to turn the UPS off and down everything that's attached to it. We install a lot of they call them net booters or PDU units because that's part of our central support. If a piece of equipment locks up, and it only takes a reboot, and you don't have it on a net booter or PDU, somebody's got to go out there, and if they're 2 hours away, and that piece of equipment's important to stay on the air, then you're going to be off 2 hours. Versus it's on a net booter, we can reboot it and it comes back up. Processors, we've had that with processors and exciters and codecs, things like that. So it's important. So part of our plan of trying to make sites robust is to put in power units that we can remotely reboot when a piece of equipment fails or locks up. Sometimes the piece of equipment fails and there's nothing we can do, but at least we have a shot at it. And I would say probably more than 50, 60, 70% of the time, a reboot will bring it back to life, versus having to send somebody out there. Like I said, it's getting hard to find good engineers, and so I think iHeart is doing the right thing by looking to put in the systems so that a central team can support the station to keep it on the air, because we just can't find the talent to that we need for certain areas.
Well, and actually, in our very last segment coming up after the next break, I want to ask you, Mike, about what kind of skills that a person should bring to the table if he wants to perhaps work for iHeart, if he wants to contact you or contact your team and maybe be employed. Maybe the person, no matter what state in the country he's in, you guys probably need could use some extra engineering help. So, and it may not be somebody from broadcast. So I'm kind of curious as to, what skills you're looking for. And before we take this last break, I want to ask Chris, what do you think about, with all the stations you take care of, is there an opportunity for a manufacturer, and I'm not necessarily talking about broadcast equipment, it could be, but it could be UPS equipment or generator equipment or fiber ONT or modem equipment. Is there a place where, the industry really needs a good fill in the blank? What do you think, Chris?
That is a good question. I want to leave, SNMP has kind of leveled things quite a bit, but there's still, with SNMP, there's still a learning curve there. I would love to see some boxes come out that kind of make SNMP easy for people, where you can, plug it into your network and maybe even, select the devices you have from a library. It grabs the MIB files, you select what ratings you want to see, and that's it. Because I think, even though Like, to me, after a couple of times going through it, SNMP is pretty easy, but there's still a lot left to be desired in it. It's not the most user-friendly interface. But the fact that everything has it now means that you can get a lot of insight to your operation. The problem is you have to track down each individual file. You have to dig through it to see what each thing means. It'd be great if somebody came out with a box or some software that had a preloaded library of common broadcast equipment, and then you just said, okay, here's my device, here are the readings I want, and it sets you up. I think that'd be fantastic.
All right, something to make SNMP easier. I'll second that emotion. I like that. Hey, it's This Week in Radio Tech. I'm Kirk Harnack, and our guest is Mike Spry. Of course, Chris Tarr is along with us as well. We have a last commercial break we'd love you to pay attention through, and then we're going to get some final words from Mike Spry and maybe a tip of the week from Chris Tarr. It's coming up, and it's time to hear from Chris Tarr about angry audio. Chris isn't angry, and he's not mad either, but he likes angry audio. Chris, what do you got to talk to us about today?
That's right. I'm happy because of angry. I loves me some angry audio. So, we're talking about all these studio moves and changes in studios. Let's face it, times have changed and radio has changed, and the way we do radio has changed. And a lot of that means that we have to build simpler studios. We have to build studios that are off-site or studios in places where there may not be technical people, and we just need solutions. We don't want to create these Franken machines that do different things. We just want stuff that you can plug in and it's going to work. That's where Angry Audio comes to the rescue. They have consoles like the Rave. They have gadgets and gizmos like Bluetooth interfaces, headphone jacks, cough buttons, even mic tallies for maybe you have a board that doesn't have an on-air light. You've got on-air lights. You've got signal gadgets. All these different things that can make your studio come to life with very little work. Now, once you get all that done, let's say you want to do processing. They've got some great processor options out there too. Or let's say you want to do webcasting. They have some great packages for that. Imagine a Rave console with one of their mic processors and one of their streaming processors. You've got a fantastic sounding audio stream there. Now they've got the software processing for if you're running a streaming station, you can run it through the software processor. The mic processors, the Rebel, which is coming out, and the Smooth, which is out. All of those sorts of things are really meant to make our lives easier. You can go and equip a full studio and use just Cat 5s using Angry Audio equipment with Cat 5 cables and Studio Hub Pluses and the equipment from Angry Audio. You can have a fully equipped studio ready to go in an hour. And let's say you want to put something in for voice tracking. You can have that set up. You could almost do it over the phone. It is that easy. So again, when you have these problems, get angry. That's when the problems disappear. When you get out there and you get angry and you get it done, those problems disappear. So check them out online. You can also contact your favorite equipment vendor for more information. Check them out online, angryaudio.com. Problems disappear when you get angry. You mentioned you can build a whole studio on Studio Hub and Ethernet cable, and come to think of it, in Oxford, Mississippi, that's what I did. We built the main studio, and all it is a remote studio for the stuff at the transmitter. And I built the whole place, and the only thing in the studio that's not Cat 5 and Studio Hub was power cords. They haven't got power over Cat 5 yet, at least not AC power. It's not rated. And the speaker cables. I ran ordinary zip cord for the speaker cables because, you don't need oxygen-free cable. I'm working with a wealth management company that does a podcast and a live show on an AM station here in town, and we're doing all Angry Audio in their studio. And, they said, well, do you need a whole weekend to do this? I said, no, give me about 2 hours so I can have your studio done.
It's incredible. All right. Thanks a lot, Angry Audio. AngryAudio.com for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. Now, I want to tell you about Max Connect Wireless, and we're come full circle. We're back to making sure you know about the wireless internet offering from Max Connect Wireless. It is a service. Yes, you get a modem with this. You get an LTE modem. But what's key is the SIM card that's inside, because Max Connect has made arrangements with each of the major carriers to get you hotspot type modem with also a wired connectivity. And it's prioritized data. You get your data goes out in and out before everybody else is on that cell tower, except for first responders. But, that's hopefully few and far between. So you get prioritized data. And here to talk to you about it is an engineer who's got a lot of experience in this. It's John Takak. John, take it away.
With all of the recent cybersecurity attacks against large corporations, we were looking for a product that would give us the ultimate security at our transmitter sites and as well as with our broadcast equipment. MaxConnect fits the bill very well. Its greatest security feature is the fact that it gives you a single static IP address. Using this single static IP address allows us to close hundreds of open ports on our firewalls across the company and restrict access to only the MaxConnect IPs. This has greatly reduced our exposure to the World Wide Web and made us much more secure moving forward. It has also given us the ability to expand as needed in a secure fashion.
And what John's talking about there is when, if you've got a remote site calling in from a fixed IP address, you know who's calling and it's one of your boxes. And if it's not, well, then you can reject that. You can whitelist your products. MaxConnect is just part of the whole suite of services and products that is offered by the MaxConnect group. At MaxConnect, that's MaxXK. ONNECT. There you go. There's a spelling right there. MaxConnect.com, or you can add the word wireless if you want to. And they have agreements with AT&T, T-Mobile, and Verizon to give you prioritized data with a static IP address. And this works great. I have had two in the last year. I have had two events where I needed this service, and it worked flawlessly. We used it to keep an FM station on the air where the local cable provider had a serious problem. They were off for 4 days during fundraising, wouldn't you know, on the radio station. So a MaxConnect modem kept them on the air, by the way, using Omnia MPX nodes. So that was cool. And then my own station in Mississippi at the transmitter site, fiber was weeks late getting installed. And so we used MaxConnect to provide our initial connectivity to get everything configured. My colleagues at Telos Alliance got into our servers there and configured everything for me using MaxConnect. So really appreciate MaxConnect Wireless. Check them out at maxconnect.com. Links in the show notes if you need the spelling. All right, we got just a few more minutes left on our show. And so I'm looking to Mike Spry to talk to us for a minute about if I were a young high school grad, maybe I'm in college, maybe I'm a college grad, maybe I'm just looking to change careers. And I've got a certain skill set, maybe a little bit of IT, maybe I know something about audio, maybe I do DJ dances on the weekends, maybe I know something about something. Maybe I've, I don't know, worked on CB radios. What skill set are you guys looking for to give you some eyes and ears and skills out in the field, Mike?
Well, obviously, we would be looking for somebody that would have some familiarity with a radio station environment. We would want somebody that maybe had IT skills. Everything's IT these days, so that's a good base or foundation. But we would probably be looking for somebody that had a certain level of RF skills. It's hard to get that. I mean, when I was getting into the business, I went and interned and I worked my first. I got into radio by working at the college radio station. I did everything from news writing to production director and the contract engineer wasn't around a lot, so I had 3 years of high school electronics, and so I just started fixing things around the station. That led to me to get my first class license, which isn't required anymore. But once I got that, a month later, I got hired at my first AM station in town, and it, for me, it was on the job training. So if somebody wanted to get into radio engineering, try to find somewhere, somehow, a way of getting your foot in the door. And I've had, I've hired and promoted people from within the station or stations that started out in promotions. and then they wanted to get into engineering, and they started working remotes and learn everything that has to do with doing remotes. And eventually they got enough experience to come on to my engineering team locally here in Orlando, and they just worked their way up. So it really on the job training for me is would be the path if somebody wants to get into the business. But that's the problem. We're not finding people that want to go into radio engineering. Average age of a radio engineer these days is probably 63 to 65. So that kind of tells you that it's an industry, a profession that not a lot of people are coming into. So, and that's unfortunate, because radio is going to be around for a while. It's not like it's going to go away. In 5 years or even 10 years. It's here to stay. So if somebody, and depending on where you are and with what company you're at, it's a pretty good career.
Indeed it is, and there can be a lot of fun things involved too. It's still fun. I harken back to the days of the 70s and 80s when it seems like radio was a lot of fun, but it can still be fun. There's still good organizations to work with, and it can be a rewarding career. It's great to see and hear the results of your work. Chris, do you have a last word for us before we say goodbye?
I've got my tip of the week.
Yeah.
All right. So we've been talking about SNMP, and one of the things I found, it's a site, denkovi.com, DENKOVI, Victor I, and they sell all types of IP controllers and SNMP controllers and relay boards. And I've done some pretty cool things with those because they work almost just like a remote, like a transmitter remote control. They've got, up to 16 relays. They've got analog and digital ins and outs and all kinds of things. And it's just got a little built-in web server for programming an SNMP. And it's just, and they're very affordable. You can find them, they sell them on their online store for a little bit more, closer to $200, but they sell them regularly on eBay for like $130. And they're great little tools for playing around with SNMP if there are things you want to control. Now I wouldn't put them in critical things for, transmitters or something. But if you're looking for ways to monitor or control things that maybe aren't as critical, this is a good way to do that, and a really inexpensive way to get in to start playing with SNMP, because it's got all the inputs and outputs and sensors that you could ever need. So check that out. Maybe get yourself a board to play with and start remote controlling some stuff.
I like it. We'll have a link in the show notes. I love the website already. I was just glancing over some of the products there. Chris, thank you. Another terrific tip of the week. I want to give a big thanks to Mike Spry with iHeartMedia. Thank you, Mike, for joining us. You've offered some great insights to us, and I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
No problem. Anytime.
All right. Chris, thank you for joining us, too. I really appreciate you being there every week, week in, week out. I don't know who our guest is next week. It'll be a mystery guest, but we'll see what we can do. All right. Hey, and thanks again to Suncast, our producer for each and every show. And tell your friends about This Week in Radio Tech. I'm glad you've joined us. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. That would be great. Like and subscribe. You always hear that about YouTube. And we're on Facebook as well, so you can like us on Facebook too. And actually, This Week in Radio Tech has a Twitter, now X, channel as well. So we'll remind you about shows on X. We got to go. We'll see you next week on This Week in Radio Tech. Bye-bye.